Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video, we're doing a viewer request. Not that long ago, I did a top 10 Dragon Ball SH Figuarts ever video, and people like that, but recently someone asked that I do a top 10 worst one, so that's what we're gonna do. This was surprisingly hard. I mean, they've had a lot of duds lately, but they haven't been that terrible, and the ones that are not good, or at least the ones that are bad, and some of them are really bad, it's obvious, but the ones that are just kind of bad, they're all kind of about the same level bad, so it was kind of hard to pick out which ones are going to make the list. So price has a lot to do with these, so you'll notice a lot of premium Bandai releases, and then other times it's just personal preference or something like that. So your list will definitely be different than mine if you come up with your own top 10 list. So let me know in the comment section below which ones you agree with, which ones you disagree with, things you'd put on the list, things you'd take off, that kind of thing. We'll talk down there. But let's go ahead and get into it. Starting our list off at number 10, we have a case of it being a recent release, so it's on my mind. There's a word for that, I can't think of it right now. Anyway, it's Android 19. This figure is not the absolute worst, but it definitely is sorely lacking. It has a very plasticky look and feel, doesn't look like a high-end collectible. Some of the engineering is some of the absolute worst we've ever seen. And they took such a fan favorite, a very creative character design, and made it a figure that's just not quite where it needs to be. It's going to be okay to have on the shelf, and that's why it's only at number 10 rather than like number 1. But it doesn't really do what I wanted it to do for me. Coming in at number 9, we have Shenron, and this figure makes the list simply because it's not an action figure. It has some articulation, but you are not meant to pose it. The only useful articulation on this thing would be the jaw and then the arms, which are basically worthless. What are you going to do with those? All the articulation on the body is worthless thanks to the large sculpted sections that require certain poses, and it has no way of holding itself up other than this really over-designed contraption that holds it up in a very specific pose. So it's not really an action figure. They should have just sold a statue or something else, and it's not even painted well on top of that, but you don't even need to get that far. It's not an action figure. In at number 8, we have the Dragon Ball Super version of Android 18. This figure is a very basic design that they basically just failed to execute on in every way. Mine happened to be missing eyebrows on one of the faces, but that's obviously a one-off. Still, the rest of the figure, very different colors across the plastics, very poor paint job, very poor articulation, poor accessories. Everything about this figure was very poor, and it was fairly expensive, and it's a basic design. They should have been able to nail this, and they didn't even come close. For number 7, we have the Armored Gohan, and this isn't the worst figure in the world. It's just on the list of the top 10. It doesn't work as well as it should. And again, this one, it really comes down to the price. It was way too expensive for the limitations that it has. It has a very cheap feel to it, doesn't pose all that well, accessories aren't that great, portioning's weird, and it's at a really high price point, so it's just kind of disappointing. Coming in at number 6, we have an oldie but a goodie. I'm not including old figures just because they're old. If they were bad at the time, they make the list, and that's why, in hindsight, this one does. I didn't say it was bad at the time, but I think I probably mentioned how bad the color scheme was, but that's why it's on here. It is horribly ugly. The paints on this thing, the molded plastics, all of it, everything but the hair really looks terrible. They did happen to do a decent job with the heavy hair and the articulation, and it's not the worst thing in the world, and it comes with a really cool accessory, but this paint scheme on this thing is just so incredibly ugly. I had to put it on the list. Alrighty, coming in at number 5, we have the Armored Krillin, which is by far worse than Gohan. I think at the time I reviewed this, I was especially upset with it, so I gave it like a really low rating, if memory serves, but it is bad. It's got all the problems Gohan has. It's got all the problems any of the SH Figuarts Dragon Ball Bandai figures have. Except it's also ridiculously expensive, being a PB exclusive, and it's just bad. Man, the heads had paint on them. Who paints the face on a PVC head? You don't do that. Everything was wrong with this figure. I don't want to get into a whole review on it again. Go check out the reviews on these things if you want to see how bad they are, but this one could have easily been pushed higher on the list. It's really awful. Coming in at number 4, we have the original release of Majin Vegeta. The repaint kind of saves it a little bit on the newer version just because the paint job looks better, but the body is still absolutely atrocious. This really couldn't be less accurate to the source material and more preposterous looking in the torso than this figure. It's really, really hard to look at this guy, and they definitely need to do a new one. Updated 3.0 body, something, I don't know, but this body is just so bad, that torso. Goodness, it's rough. Coming in at number 3, we have Pan. And this figure has 2 major flaws. One is it's about an inch tall, not literally, but it's very small and incredibly expensive. And they didn't do a particularly good job with it. For instance, they didn't even sculpt her arms. It's just the articulation without any attempt to make it look like a body part from the elbows up. Other than the sleeves, it's inside the sleeves. It's really, really cheaply put together, really cheaply designed, and it's ridiculously expensive for being the size of an accessory. We can't get a Goldo figure, but we have this. It makes no sense, and it's also really bad. Okay, coming in at number 2, we have the Broly that is the worst Broly ever made. And that's kind of not really saying something because all the Brolys other than this one are pretty darn solid. But this one, they really screwed up by using the wrong lower half. I mean, there's problems with this figure throughout, like the articulation's not good, and it should be because the whole top half is just basically bare human, but they used a lower half that's from a different figure that's way bigger than this one. It looks clownish. His lower half is like twice the size it should be. And so for that oversight or poor decision or whatever you want to call it alone, it has to be at the top of the list. His bottom half looks like it's from a different figure because it is. All right, and then lastly, coming in at number 1 to nobody's surprise, we have Porunga. The most expensive, least well-executed thing from this line by far. Porunga is terrible. There's a whole list, a litany of problems with this figure. Everything from execution to conception to price point to just everything. There's nothing good about this figure other than the overall sculpt. Not the details in certain places, but the overall sculpt is pretty okay. That's about it. Even things they did in the articulation hurt the sculpt for no reason. The light up feature doesn't work. It's in Japanese, and the way it does the talking is super annoying. It's like the most gimmicky kid's toy of a $300 adult collectible that I have ever seen. I don't know anybody in person or even online, people I talked to, that actually enjoyed buying this figure. And I'm pretty sure you can get it for way cheaper than what we paid originally. But this thing was a total miss, a total loss. Big L for Bandai. Not a good release, unfortunately, because Porunga is such a cool character design. But that's the way it goes. Alrighty guys, so there's my top 10 list of the worst SH Figuarts Dragon Ball figures. If you had any difference of opinion for things that made the list or things that didn't, please do let me know down there in the comment section below. And if you have any ideas for top 10 lists that you'd like to see by the end of the year, let me know about that as well. Of course, I'm going to be doing the usuals, but maybe I'll have some time to mix in some extras if you guys want something special. So again, let me know in the comment section below. But that'll do it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down is okay too. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos every day but Wednesday and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.